Today on the Every Woman Show, we're talking about mental health. How do you feel when you set a goal and you don't meet it? How does it affect your mental health? We're talking about that today. We're also going to talk about Generation Z and how they have been widely diagnosed with things such as ADHD and anxiety. Then we're going to have a couple of special guests on the show, a licensed therapist who's going to tell us about how we cope with our daily stressors and get through to the next day. Join us in the studio as we talk about mental health today on the Every Woman Show. This is Every Woman.
Queens over here, and make no mistake, in big things over here. Goddess in the flesh, you can tell by the smell of it. Every time I step in the room, it's an elephant. Woman.
He just not gonna count us in. We just back. Hey, welcome to the Every Woman Show. You all have been sticking with us and rocking with us, and we appreciate you. So we are back for another exciting show, and we are so happy to welcome our co-host Sabrina, new mommy.
Yeah.
Welcome back, girl.
Well, thank you. It feels good to be back. I missed you, ladies.
We missed you too. We absolutely did.
Aww.
You know, you bring such a positive light and energy to this panel.
Well, I bring what I can.
You bring it all.
I bring the lightness, not the heaviness. I hope. But I'll be serious too sometimes. But we'll see how it goes today. Today is an interesting show.
It is. Today we're talking about mental health. And but first we want to start out talking about like how do we keep going on a daily basis? I know with you being as a new mom, I don't know if you gave up caffeine during your pregnancy or even now that you're nursing, but what is y'all's preference? Like coffee or tea? Are you a coffee or tea drinker?
Coffee.
Tea.
I drink coffee.
I'm definitely coffee. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
A caramel macchiato chilled from Starbucks. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. What keeps you going with being a new mommy and having the twins?
Okay, so strangely enough, I wasn't an everyday coffee person before I got pregnant, but I started drinking coffee pregnant. Do not do this on your own. Don't take my advice. Talk to your people, talk to your doctors before you do this. For me, I made it like, okay, I can have one shot of espresso a day, but I needed it because I was so sleepy and I loved making, moving around. So I'm still drinking my coffee. As you can tell, my Every Woman cup is quite tattered. But I missed you ladies so much that I looked in the mirror like, I am every woman.
Well, we don't have our coffee cups today, but I drink Cafe Du Monde.
Ooh, the beignet place.
Yeah, from New Orleans. So here's the problem. I used to think Starbucks coffee was way too strong. And I thought it tastes like battery acid. Like, I don't really know what battery acid tastes like, but if I had to compare it to something, it was that Starbucks coffee. But that Cafe Du Monde with the chicory in it, it gets me going every morning. And it is so strong. My husband makes it like dark as mud. And then we put a little sweet cream in it, and then that's it. And I'm good. That one cup for the day. But y'all know it's almost like a natural laxative too, right?
Oh yeah. Baby, the smell of it.
Yeah.
Just the smell.
Yeah, so keep a bathroom close by when you're drinking this coffee. So I told y'all before, I'm like I'm a consumer. I consume goods.
Coffee.
I consume goods. And Instagram has been marketing to me. And I done fooled around and bought this mushroom coffee.
How is it? Oh yeah, I've been wanting to try that.
It's disgusting.
Oh.
Listen,
I am disappointed.
The sweet cream?
I'm debating if I'm about to put this on blast or not. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's how I'm preparing it.
Well, from what I heard from my hippie friends, if you steep mushrooms, they don't taste good anyway.
Yeah. Your mushrooms don't have the best taste. Like, even if you eat like a whole one, it's like a chalky, like, I'm not the biggest fan, but I actually had mushroom tea before and it was pretty good, but it was like agave in there, so I didn't really taste the shroom. So You probably just need something to mask the because it doesn't sound like you use a lot of creamer in the first place with coffee.
And then I think they have these different options to frappe it up and make it ice.
You gotta add some razzle dazzle to
You
it.
do, but y'all know this little bag of coffee costs $30-something. I don't, and they had the nerve to send me another one. I'm like, hold up,
For free, right?
Don't even worry about it. It's on the floor because I'm sending it back. I'm like, how did y'all? Did you throw it? Why y'all send me more of this? I gotta figure out how to get rid of the reorder.
You probably signed up for the subscription.
I would like to try
I
it.
did.
I would like to try it.
Okay,
I was gonna say that too.
My go-to coffee I learned about in New York is Dominican Espresso. It's what is it? Cafe Busco? Cafe Bustelo? You know what
Isn't
I'm
it
talking
yellow
about?
pack?
Yeah, girl. That stuff
yes.
is liquid lightning.
I know what you're talking about.
It is.
And I had it as cafe con leche from the Colombians. And next thing you know, I'm like, okay, I painted my house. I planted flowers.
It definitely
I got my work done. I took a bath. I went to Japan. I came back. It was a good time.
So I like tea as well.
Yeah.
It's not my
I
everyday
love tea.
go-to, but I do have a friend who is based out of Detroit who started a tea company. It's called Maddie Louise Simplicities. And yes, it's so good. I ordered a couple of different flavors. So if y'all are interested in like infused tea, because it doesn't come in the bags,
It's a loose.
It's
I
a
love
loose
those.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And they
Yeah.
also sell the infusers where you
Yeah.
can put it in there and seep it. Oh my gosh. I didn't even need no sugar. I just added a little honey and drank that tea. It was so good. They have several different flavors. So shout out to Maddie Louise Simplicities and my girl Cher Taylor who started that line. If y'all want to get some, y'all can get 15% off with code TAM. TAM. Go to the website.
But isn't tea like a self-care versus coffee like a production? Like if I'm drinking tea, I'm like, bath time.
Yeah.
If I'm drinking coffee, I'm like, it's time to get it done.
Turn up.
Well, it depends because some teas do have caffeine in it too. It's just not as heavy as coffee. But like I do get what you're saying because I only really drink tea when I'm sick or like if I got a sore throat or something like that. Other than that, I give me a coffee or some
So the
vodka.
way y'all drink coffee is the way I drink tea.
Okay.
Okay.
Does tea stimulate you though?
It does.
Okay.
It
All right.
does.
Well, speaking of stimulation and turning up, here's another question for y'all. Wondering where this is going? When is having fun going too far? All right, let me give you a little color around why I'm asking this question. So I don't know if y'all can tell or not, but I'm a very high-spirited, engaged.
You don't say. Oh, I'm sorry.
Did she look you up and down like you was?
She did.
Okay.
I like to have fun. Let's just keep it at that. And I'm also a professional, right? We all have our brands and our images that we want to protect as women and make sure that we're keeping it classy.
Okay.
But being that, depending on who I'm around, I will like figure out how much fun I want to have, how much alcohol I want to drink, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But, I was hanging out, dancing, having a good time. I was not drunk. I was just enjoying the moment and letting the energy flow, right? And so I'm dancing with some people and, I'm a married woman still keeping it classy. And I politely got the shutdown, like, come on, reel it in. It was real subtle. Like, don't do too much, but
What
bring it on
happened?
back. Because there's a lot of cameras around, a lot of images being taken and things like that. So, like,
It can be taken the wrong way.
yeah, it can be taken
I
the
get
wrong
it.
way. So when you're having fun, like, how far and in what settings do y'all choose to go with having y'all fun?
I can't have the police involved. That's important. Like,
The beginning and the end.
Yeah.
I just would prefer, not to go to jail and, stuff like that. Keep my record clean.
Agreed,
So,
agreed.
like I'm a comedian, so it's kind of like I got a little leeway.
You do.
But with the
Yeah.
things that I want to do, I still had to clean myself up because I got potty mouth. And that's where I had to get myself together more. So I kind of have to watch the way I react to things more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Sabrina, I know you host a lot of events and things like that. So you're always like used to being in front of the camera, but do you ever just cut loose and have fun? Like, are there certain settings where you just like keep it chill, or when certain settings where you just turn all the way up?
Truth be told, I set my expectation before I go wherever I'm going. So in a situation where I'm in a a corporate setting, because I am also a corporate professional, I might really, truth be told, it's like what they tell lawyers. It depends. It all depends.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I've been wrong sometimes in how I behaved, or wrong is also very subjective.
Yeah.
My ex-husband slapped my wrist for turning up at this khaki ball in Japan, and I thought I was just having a good time, and he was very upset that I was dancing and doing things. And to me, it wasn't that bad, but to him and how he wants to be portrayed amongst his peers, that was his work setting. So you have to just be very thoughtful about how you want to be perceived and what you're willing to stand for.
So the thing that I don't know if I necessarily struggle with it, but I just want to be authentically me 100% of the time, right? Yeah. And so that's all I felt like I was doing, was just being who I am authentically, a good vibe, a good energy, and just spreading that around. And
What do you think she thought was going too far? You know what I'm saying?
I don't even think it was like that. It was just a very good friend looking out, making sure that I was, not. You have that good friend that'd be like, all right, girl, come on. Mm-hmm. I just didn't think that what I was doing warranted it. Yeah. I don't know.
You know how they say, it's a time and a place for everything?
Yeah.
To what you were speaking to, her time and place for everything probably might have just been slightly different from yours.
Subjective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. So I was like, did you at least have a conversation with her later?
No, it was understood that need to be said.
Understood.
Sort of thing.
One of those.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in keeping in line with the theme, how'd that make you feel?
How about that?
I'm talking about it today, ain't I? I'm like, did I do something wrong? I had to question myself, was my behavior out of line?
And that sucks, that you felt like you needed to question yourself. You are a grown person. You know how you were okay with it. And for someone else to question you, perhaps it was worth the conversation.
Yeah. But, I don't think it really was, though.
I kind of think self-evaluation is good too. So it made you think, and even though you thought about it, and you said, you know what, I didn't do anything wrong. It's good that you at least thought about it, because a lot of people fail to do that. Yeah. Self-evaluation is so important.
You have to evaluate your behavior, and assess and do better and move forward, right? Yeah. And so maybe that's just what I'm doing. Okay, if I'm in this setting again in the future, what will I do different, or will I do anything different, or will I do everything the same?
But that's. Are you actually enjoying yourself, though?
Oh, I had a great time. I had a great time.
Moving forward, are you going to live in being authentic and actually enjoy yourself completely?
Dang, I feel like I just set myself up for an interview with this one. On to the next topic.
Hey, just consider your audience.
All I was trying to do by bringing up this subject is to bring light to women in public spaces who have brands, who want to be authentic and maintain, a certain level of classiness, or whatever your authenticity level is, just maintaining that.
There's
right?
a lot
and
of consideration.
Being true to it, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I saw a picture of Meg Thee Stallion when she was with Vice President Kamala Harris, and somebody sent it to me, or I saw somebody posted it, and they was like, this is the most authentic thing I ever seen. You know how Meg like to stick her tongue out. She took a selfie with the VP with her tongue out
She still was her.
Exactly. And that's the authenticity I'm talking about. Be who you are.
Yeah, she still was her, but I bet you she won't body yaddy yaddy in the White House. You know what I'm saying? She not about to...
What's to say that she won't?
Girl, hold her drink. Are you serious?
I don't know.
I think she would.
Y'all think she'll bust it down in the White House?
I think she'll bust it down.
Depending on if it's a party, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think she'd do it.
Okay, I have an issue with...
Lizzo will.
She was going.
Lizzo is gonna do it. Lizzo don't do nothing else. She gonna bust it down, Tatiana. But it's a matter of who you are, and it sucks that you gotta think about it so hard.
Yeah. I'm not thinking about it too hard. I just wanted to see what you ladies...
I think about it hard.
What you ladies thought about it. This is the Every Woman show. We talk about every day, every woman topics, and so I just thought it was something that we should all consider and bring to the conversation. So, but go ahead.
If your husband good with it, I be good with.
Listen, I showed my husband the video because I was taking footage at the same time. And I was like, look, I was having fun. And he was like, okay, baby. Uh-huh.
And that's all you got to hear about.
Yeah.
He's like,
So,
okay.
But on the topic of celebrities and busting it down in the White House, Toy, what celebrity gossip you got for us this week?
And too much fun. Let me tell y'all, no April Fools just passed, right?
Yep.
And I was like, ain't nobody get me, okay? The celebrities were going in. I was curious to know, like, what was the craziest April Fool's prank ever pulled? And turns out Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon got Kevin Hart so good that he put his face on Kevin Hart's plane. And to add insult to injury, it said, Kev rides the cannon. So I thought that was hilarious.
That's rich people foolery.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite pranks that I've seen. A more recent prank actually came from Sarah Polley. Her daughter pranked her and sent her a letter from the Academy stating that they had to revoke her Oscar. Yes.
Who is Sarah Polley?
Yeah,
she got an Oscar for the best adapted screenplay for the All Quiet on the Western Front, which I've never seen before, but I was very interested in her daughter's prank. So
we don't know who she is, but we know her daughter got her good.
Sarah is like, it was funny. She went to Twitter and even told like Twitter fans, and they was like, oh my God, and everything. And she got back on there like, okay, my daughter swung low. It was a prank. So I thought that was really funny, and she got her good. Other celebrity gossip, there happens to not be a prank. Jonathan Majors, we talked about him last week. He was accused of having a domestic violence dispute, and we do definitely have some updates on that. His lawyer released text messages from, supposedly from the lady who was involved in the domestic dispute, and the text messages were supposed to be what his lawyer had to prove it. I'm stuttering. But basically, the situation was that Majors called 911. And
who called 911?
Majors.
He called 911.
According to his lawyer,
Okay.
He called 911 because he was concerned about the young lady's mental status. And the whole fiasco happened basically from another lady supposedly texting his phone, and she's trying to look at it, and he's like, no. So all of this happened in a taxi cab. It's blurred lines about what happened between the taxi and the young lady, but the reasons or the situation that led up to Jonathan even being arrested is because it is NYPD's protocol. If it's shown any evidence of a fight or any type of hitting, the other person is arrested, and the lady had, scratches and things like that. And the thing is, the text messages were the thing that got me the most. These text messages that were sent to Majors hours later said, they assured me that you would not get charged. They said they had to arrest you as protocol when they saw my injuries and knew that there was a fight. I'm sorry you're in this position. We'll make sure that nothing happens. I told them that it was my fault for trying to grab your phone.
That's what the girl said.
Yes. These are reported screenshots that Jonathan Majors' attorney had released. So we're not sure on what's true. We're not sure on what's false. This is why I tend to mind my business in situations like that, because you kind of never know if it's a blur line, if it's accusations being made and things like that. But what I do hope is that both parties are able to resolve whatever issues that they're having, and we can move forward from that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
We've got some studies here that are showing that 9 to 12% of Americans on average are the only percentage that stick with their goals, right? So who's in the 80 to 90% that ain't? Is it you? Is it you?
Can we be half and half?
Right, because I'm like...
And how does that affect your mental health, right? You set these goals for yourself and you work at it, you either make no accomplishments or you have small victories, right?
Yeah.
So when you set a goal for yourself, is it realistic? Are you setting a timeline for yourself to complete it? Like, where are you falling in this range?
I think I'm with Robin Thicke in saying it's a blurred line. So that percentage is really, really high, for people to not commit to the things that they say they're going to do. And to me, that's more the concern. People have to keep their word. And first and foremost, you got to keep it to yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
So the fact of the matter is, if you are making a commitment to better yourself, whatever that looks like, because personally, I love what Blac Chyna is doing.
I do.
Oh, excuse me. Ironically, white, black, so Angela
White.
White.
That's
Like not to make it so ironic, but I just caught that and I was like, aha. So even in that, and I won't get too deep. Long story short, I love the way she looks. I'm more attracted to her as a person for being more relatable on the level of, I don't have $1 million to make all these quote unquote enhancements. It's not enhancing to me. But at the end of the day, whatever you think is going towards the light, go towards the light. Because Dolly Parton feels differently.
So it can still be unrealistic, though, right? Some of the goals that you set and whether you meet them or not, right? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, what's unrealistic about these goals that 80 to 90% of people are not meeting them?
I think maybe they're setting the bar too high sometimes, because they may write this goal and it could be something that's very large, very broad.
But we always say dream big, shoot
We
for the
do always
stars.
say
The
dream
sky's
big,
the
but
limit.
you also have to be realistic in when you're doing that. You can't just say, okay, I'm gonna go on Disney or something. Like,
yes, you can.
You can. The thing is,
You
I
can
think
say
people,
it.
I think the problem is people putting a timestamp on it. Like,
Yeah.
of
That's
course,
it.
I love doing voiceovers. I would love to be on Disney. I would love to do voices for Nickelodeon or something.
Manifest that.
And it will happen. But I think I'm setting myself up by saying, okay, in 2 months I'm about to be on Disney.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
even have a plug or a commercial or audio setup.
Okay, you do got a commercial, and people been seeing it.
Yeah,
You do have a commercial.
Okay, commercial.
There's one out there.
I think for me,
seen
like
some.
we talked about it before, like I set a weekly goal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to put myself somewhere where I'm not going to be able to reach
So
it
those
more
are those
further.
instant gratification type things. Like you have to re-encourage yourself to have those small victories in
Yeah.
order to stay focused on the
Stay
larger
focused.
goal.
That's right. Which is why I haven't filled out my check yet, right? 'Cause
I call them get
still
off
haven't
goals.
filled out my
Get
check.
off goals.
Get
Yeah.
off goals. You getting off on them.
Yeah. So I think it's falls in there.
Yeah,
Mine's
okay.
are-
Okay, I got you. I feel you.
It's an elephant. Goals are not to be made small.
Right.
That limits you. You want to have a big goal. You want to be the new voice of the new character
Yeah.
that's going to sell 1 million toys. Absolutely, toy.
Toy.
Right.
I like your pun.
Okay, I'm punny like that. But the point is, you want to have an elephant goal, but you got to eat the elephant one bite at a time.
Exactly.
Even if you
So
vegan.
make those true vegan bites. All the bites. You just make those smaller goals to make sure that you're heading
towards your larger.
right. And keep the focus. That was my whole thing for the new year. Like, look, my word for the year is focus.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some people seek out life coaches and therapists and things like that when they're setting these goals and these targets and things like that. What are y'all thoughts about, working on goals with a life coach? Do you find them necessary? Can they be beneficial?
Absolutely. I definitely think so. The thing is, my theory on therapy, and even with a life coach, therapy does not work if you are not 100% honest with yourself and your therapist. Honesty equates to transparency. So you definitely should include them on those goals, because you may have an underlying reason that your therapist needs to help you seek out or talk about or discover why you even set those goals in the first place. So I think it's extremely important. Yeah.
They even have career coaches, right? So that's another lane of getting professionals support in order to reach a goal. Because maybe you don't know exactly what the tasks are that you need to complete in order to reach a career goal or another career height. Yeah. So I'm for them. Anything that can enhance me and help me to grow higher and higher, I'm with it.
Another thing could be accountability partners too, because you may not necessarily want to go and see a therapist, but you may have a girlfriend or somebody that you can kind of just feed into and say, hey, I just need somebody to hold me accountable for the things that I'm trying to do.
And then you also have that stigma that's placed on, shrinks.
Yeah.
And things like, especially in the Black community, right?
Just because you seek support does not mean there's something wrong with you.
Exactly. And
sometimes that's what keeps us right.
I feel like it's something wrong with you if you don't seek some sort of support, help, or therapy, a counselor, an accountability partner, a mentor.
Yeah. It's all exercise. And I would love to see that we are promoting mental health as much as we promote physical health, right?
Absolutely.
Because physical health is always a huge part of a goal that we set for ourselves. And I want to be leaner. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to do this, reshape. You know,
Listen,
we were talking
I want to
about
be grounded.
That too.
Electricity.
That too. But so like, we see all of these commercials on TV. We hear them on the radio, Planet Fitness, Lifetime, you know, and then you have all these different pills and modifiers and things like that promote physical health. But can we get mental health promoted just as prominently?
I think we should.
Like how we do that? Let's solve all the world's problems right now on the Every Woman Show.
Somebody with a BBL got to tell you to do it, and everyone will listen.
Somebody with a BBL. Now see, and to piggyback off my friend here who looked like me today, and I love it. So I look like her. But the point in the matter is radical acceptance. It's understanding that you have issues and you can face those issues to become a greater person for yourself first and for society after that.
Yeah. I was put in therapy at a very young age by my parents when I was diagnosed with alopecia. And I think it was one of the best things that my parents could have done for me for support because I wasn't talking to them. I was bottling up everything that I was dealing with emotionally because it not only had a physical toll on me, it had a psychological toll on me as well. And I didn't know how to express that. And so they put me in therapy probably when I was around 8 years old, just to get me in front of somebody who could ask me the right questions to help me to identify what exactly I was feeling and how to put those into words. I am a proponent. I am definitely an advocate for therapy. Get what you need. And don't nobody else have to know about it. Now, with that being said, some people do get in therapy though, and then they be like trying to become counselors low key, and their therapy sessions spill over into your life. That's like does that offend y'all at all when people do that?
Yeah. It's like the people who are woke and they want you to change your life drastically just because they have changed theirs.
Like your problem ain't my problem.
Don't come over here with that. If you're here to assist me and you want to, give me some guidance or tell me some things that you are doing in therapy that will assist me, absolutely.
But I feel like
don't try to coach me.
I feel like therapists might tell them like, don't discuss what you discuss in therapy with other people. I don't know if that's necessarily healthy.
So I don't know that they do that though. I think.
Well, we gonna find out because we got some. We gonna interview.
I think the therapist can't do that, but the person themselves. Because I have friends who are in therapy who will come out, they'll talk about some of the things that they've talked about in therapy. Yeah.
I mean, and maybe it's just them trying to, after they get their diagnosis, either they're trying to deal.
I think it's a pay it forward type of thing for some people, and like they subconsciously do it. Like I was having a discussion with a friend who newly had started therapy, and I was talking to them about my personal problems. And I was just, I can't even remember what we were talking about, but I made a statement. And sometimes I am I said what I said type of person. There's no underlying meaning or anything behind it. But she was like, oh, so are you doing that because of this and that? Da, 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 da? And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you're doing this because you felt that way a long time ago. And I'm like, no, I'm doing this because it was supposed to be done at that time. And like, that was the situation. And she tried to make it a whole nother thing. Like she was a therapist. And I said, we not in session, right? Like it was something.
So she was trying to process. Yeah. She was trying to process some new information that she had taken in and maybe share with you.
And I said, no, it exactly is what I said, not anything different,
You went, I said what I said.
Yeah.
I said.
So some voluntary therapy that anybody can get right now. There's an app called I Am. And will send you reminders of little affirmations throughout the day. And my watch just went off, and I thought I put it on Do Not Disturb, but excuse me. And it told me I choose happiness and I choose to grab it. And that's something that I love to see throughout the day, just as a reminder of how I need to choose. There's a choice in these matters, and not to say that everybody has the strength to make that choice at the time, but I would like people to know that don't feel any kind of way if you don't have the strength at that moment. Just know that you can work towards it. And many people judge you and think that all you got to do is make another choice. Yeah. And at the end of the day, know that there's opportunities to work step by step. Me, myself, coming off of maternity leave, I'd love to speak to the my personal situation. I dealt with maternal mental health at Henry Ford, and thank you, Henry Ford Hospital, for even having that program for me, because obviously women who are pregnant, y'all love to talk about them. Y'all love to talk about a woman who's pregnant. Let me tell you something. Don't talk about pregnant women, okay? They're definitely going through something.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They're definitely, and everybody on this panel, 1,000%.
Yeah.
You go through a lot. And so there's a program within Henry Ford, the maternal mental health, and I still work with them because a year after the fact, they still provide you therapy sessions so you can get acclimated to life with your baby.
Right.
awesome.
Right.
That's amazing for me. And this is just such a great show for me. I'm just going to reel it in as you say. Reel it in.
Back to that, there's another app called Motivation that I have on my phone that does the same thing. And surprisingly, it seems like anytime I'm like going through something mentally,
Okay.
the quote will come up, and it's like
it knows.
It be on point.
I be like,
You got an Apple Watch?
I
Or
don't.
you have some sort of
I
smartwatch?
do not, but I be like, what?
Who told you?
Who sent you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got that on my phone.
It's the
too,
technology.
yeah.
It just senses it.
Yeah,
on
and
you.
It's
I be
like
wow.
Big Brother.
Listen, on that note, we are going to go to commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about mental health and Generation Z. We'll be right back.
Hey, has this been your podcast studio experience? Has the location been less than favorable?
No. I can't do this.
Come to Every Media, where quality matters, located in Royal Oak, Michigan. Visit every.media.
Welcome back to the Every
That's
Woman Show.
EVRY.media.
According to psychiatrist.com, 42% of Gen Zers have received a mental health diagnosis, with the most common diagnosis being anxiety, depression, ADHD, and PTSD. We are joined now by Austin Hickerson, who is a residential unit coordinator with a bachelor's in psychology. Welcome to the Every Woman Show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. How y'all doing?
We're doing
good.
good. How are you?
Doing well.
So, is mental health still a subject that is really not discussed in homes? And if so, why do you think that is?
No, I think at this point it's a pretty common topic around most homes in America, everywhere really. It's just a thing that kids, we talk about it in school, we talk about it in the programs, we talk about it in everywhere, just because it is now more common knowledge. It's more known. We kind of have this thing where they say everybody's a therapist, so like everyone likes to talk to their friends. They like to try to give them that advice. So there's those micro conversations happening all around.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do as a residential unit coordinator and the type of patients you work with?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of patients. We have TBIs and we have CMHs. So
what do those letters stand for?
Give us some acronyms.
So TBI is traumatic brain injury. So typically they've been hit by a car or something like that. They got hit real hard, got a concussion, messed up the brain chemistry, all that. CMH is just your typical, you have schizophrenia, you have bipolar 1, you have just your mental health issues. So as a unit coordinator, what I do is I work with a lot of the staff. I train the staff, and I kind of lead the staff in how to best tend to our residents, whether that be their treatment programs, how to de-escalate, because sometimes they do get a little violent in there. rather go on outings, how to best relate to them, even just something simple as learning how to have conversations with residents. And so a lot of that is just me trying to enhance the resident to staff experience.
The patients that you work with the traumatic brain injuries, did they have mental health issues prior to their brain injuries, or were these mental health issues brought on as a result of their trauma?
It can vary. Some people were born with it. Some people happen a little later on. Actually, I have a friend who he was normal per se, or he didn't have any type of mental ailments beforehand, and then as we got into adulthood, he ended up developing schizophrenia, and now he's a resident that we actually end up caring for.
How do you develop schizophrenia? There's something I can do to avoid developing schizophrenia?
No. So schizophrenia can happen one of two ways. Either you can it's hereditary. Usually about early 20s is when you're gonna see that, or you out and about and you intaking the wrong substances and you get the wrong chemicals, it's going to mess with the chemicals in your brain, and that's just what you're gonna get.
It'll throw you off balance.
There's all kind of ways that this can develop within a person, and I think that the stigma amongst the community as Black people is something's up, something's wrong. Like, what does that even look like? Like, how do you even know?
I mean, you have to, and a lot of it is life based. Like, I guess I'll continue to talk about my friend for a little bit. We had known each other since we were like 12 years old. So as we got older and we kind of started to see that things were different, there were very clear signs that everyone else was like, oh, he just tripping. But to me, I was like, that ain't you.
Yeah.
And it was for that reason that we were able to eventually catch him and was like, hey, you should probably get him seen.
Yeah.
And now he's at a point to where he's even towards recovery just because we were able to get on top of it.
That's the good support system around you, having people who truly care about you and love you, and I can identify, something is different, as opposed to just writing off, oh, you just crazy,
Right.
That's not cool.
Are there other, I know you mentioned schizophrenia, are there other mental illnesses that you can get from hereditary,
Yeah, absolutely. You can get autism, like bipolar 1, which we also call manic depressive. I can't think of too many that can't just be passed down.
Really?
Is Asperger's a mental health diagnosis, or what is that?
Yeah, so there was a lot of sub ailments that they kind of consolidated into just the autism spectrum disorder. Asperger's fell into that. A plethora of them did, and just because when you go into the DSM, you will read the symptoms. It'll tell you everything that's going on in there, and a lot of the symptoms are interchangeable. And you'll see a lot of them. Like, there's X amount of ailments that have anxiety, X amount that have PTSD, delusions, and so to kind of narrow it down into one, kind of title, autism spectrum disorder.
So you think they are lumping a lot of diagnoses into that one category and maybe misdiagnosing some people in some cases?
Yeah, potentially. I do also think that there's kind of a thing where you try to specify every little thing. After a while, you kind of dismiss the root of what you're trying to go for, because you're trying to psychoanalyze every minute detail of what's going on, and sometimes you just don't need to do that.
Okay, so let's get back to like our topic of this 42% of Gen Zers who have been given these mental health diagnoses. I mean, 42% is a large number. How much do the younger generation have to deal, with mental health issues than maybe the older generations, the silent generation, the baby boomers? Like, what is so different about what happened in the previous generations to what's going on with our Gen Zers?
Well, I mean, there's two large things that are different now. I mean, one is just the amount we talk about it. Gen X, it was mental health was just not as much of a conversation. So
Right.
it was, toughen up, keep pushing, get your stuff together. So a lot of things that should have been talked about was just kind of chopped up to, oh, you was just having a rough day, you'll get past it. But now we're saying, no, talk about it. Go see somebody, go seek help. So just conversation.
Yeah.
The other thing is just what kids are dealing with nowadays is there's just a lack of security in just where they go. Schools get shot up. It's easy to get kidnapped.
Human trafficking.
Kids killing kids. One of the jobs I did, I worked with juveniles, and the amount in which they just harmed each other. And it's so different even just from when I was a kid to now, and I'm only 26. When I was a kid, if you got in a fight, it was they made fun of you if you were scared to fight. We all recognize that you win some, you lose some, but if you were scared, we're going to talk about you.
Right.
And you move on, take your jokes, take your lump, all well. But now, the simple fact of you lost, the embarrassment is so drastic. Okay, now let me go kill you.
You gotta die.
Yeah.
You gotta die because I can't live with this embarrassment.
I took an L.
It's crazy.
All right, you
And
off.
see, that's also a processing issue.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we all win, we all lose. There's a time for every season. There's a time for life. There's a time for death. And when we look at it, it's more than just understanding that everything is a win. Like, how important is that win to people nowadays, to where they can't imagine that other person beating them and living?
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, I can recall, when I was growing up, we dealt with a lot of the same issues, people fighting but nobody really ever came back to shoot somebody because they lost the fight. Now, we did have some issues where it did happen, but I don't think it affected us as much because these kids now, they're being put into gangs and having to, and they're not really ready.
Gangs been around for decades.
I know.
Gangs
they
is
aren't
one
really
thing,
ready.
camera phones is another.
Yeah, 'cause I think it's different for the Gen Zers because you have things like they grew up in the age of technology versus, people before, like the millennials and Generation X. It's like you either learned and then you grew into it. Like, so this is all these kids know. And the thought of being put on social media with a fight or being embarrassed, like, is detrimental to them because it's not just like back in our day. It was just, it happened in that school, it happened in the community.
It happened in
now,
that space,
the
and it didn't go
entire
further.
world knows. So it's kind of like pros and cons when it comes to like social media and mental health because that's the con of it. But one of the pros is you can people are expressing themselves more on social media.
Everybody has a platform.
And you can end up finding that person and say, hey, they're going through the same thing I'm going through, and it may help that person or make them want to seek therapy or potentially get the help that they need. Like, have you seen any pros like to it, like with the residents and your patients that come to you? Like, have you seen it? They use that as a way to actually express themselves, and it's in a healthy way where it helps them.
Yeah. So I mean, some of our residents, they can access their phones and stuff like that, and you have a lot of those positive channels. We have a lot of what's it called? Okay, I'll talk about this one resident. She struggles with just her emotions. She doesn't know how to channel it, and her way of coping with that is to self-harm or sometimes even just pretend she likes attention. If the attention is not being distributed to her in a way that she likes, then she will, I fell downstairs, or I'm bleeding. And whether they're something actually happened or it's a little more minute, they happen nonetheless. And we found that, how about you just type out if you're frustrated? Because unfortunately there's multiple residents. Staff is thin now in the mental health game. And so not every resident can be attended to as much as they may want or need at the time. But we know you got something going on. We know you're feeling something. We know that has to be redistributed. Every time you're frustrated, and if I can't get to you right then, go on your computer and type it out. Unfiltered.
I know that you say you, in your practice right now, you deal with a lot of traumatic brain injuries and one other 3-letter.
CMH, clinical mental health.
Some acronym.
Some other acronym you mentioned, but the statistic that I gave at the top of the segment, do you see a lot of Gen Zers? Like, what generation are you? Do you know?
Well, when I was younger, they told me I was a millennial. Now I'm a Gen Z.
Okay, you a Gen Z now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you just switched. You just jumped years when you was born.
I guess so.
Okay, my point, the question that I was trying to ask is, do you see a lot of Gen Zers in the space with these diagnoses? Like, do you see the actual data, the raw data that supports this statistic that we got?
So if we're talking like if I physically see the numbers, I would say no.
Okay.
But in my interactions with the residents, you can absolutely see a lot of stressors. We have most of my residents are a little more on the older side. I would say we have maybe about 4 or 5 that are on the younger side.
Okay.
And of those, you can see a lot of just comparing themselves to one another.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about that same resident who, has a lot of the just attention issues. Mm-hmm. She compares herself to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Am I in shape enough? Am I this? Oh, this person got that. And, somebody get a birthday party. Oh, my birthday party wasn't as good. I'm not as important.
Mm-hmm.
And that constant comparing typically then creates the issue for that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do at that age. They compare themselves to their peers. They compare themselves to the internet, everything. And then they go in the comments, and then the comments are no better.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I always run to the comments because it's entertaining
every time.
So my question is this, and it stems from you speaking to the idea that you have a vast age range of residents, and so do you feel that the residents of a certain generation have different issues, so to speak, than like a different generation? Like the older generation may have like a conversation about one thing, and then the younger generation may have a different conversation.
Absolutely, and that is largely what helps you relate to each, because you gotta learn how to meet them where they're at.
Right.
The way I'm gonna talk to my resident that's 19 is not gonna be the same as how I talk to my 76-year-old.
That's real.
I'm a 19-year-old. I might be a little softer. I might, super validate your feelings, because that's huge to them, making sure that they feel heard. 76-year-old, he might just need the straight facts.
Okay.
Get to the nitty gritty. This is what it is. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Too much talking, they get disinterested.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to learn how to be just straight and narrow with them.
Is there any specific thing that you think, speaking about straight, getting straight to the point of when you're talking to that generation, what would be helpful for Gen Zers, since they have, all of these anxieties and ADHD diagnoses? How do we help them to overcome that? Is it medication? Is it therapy? Is it,
It's definitely
like
not butt
how can we help?
It's not butt whipping?
No.
Is it marijuana? Is it sex?
Yeah, because you remember back in the day.
How do we cope?
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to find a way to get rid of the excess energy. You have to find a way to tire out. So talk about me a little bit. When I throughout like middle school all the way up through college, I ran track. It was a great way to help dispel a lot of the anger. I was an angry kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of hard to be mad after running a 400-meter dash.
Yes, it is.
You ain't doing nothing but sleep.
I can contest.
And even
Likewise.
even if you're upset, even if you rationalize why you're mad, even if you rationalize why you're sad, and you're like, all right, I'm calm now. Even if you reach a point of calm, you're still built up. You still, your chest is hot. It's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And it might not be sports. It could be writing. It could be dancing. It could be singing. But whatever it is, you have to dispel that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's good advice.
I notice I don't cook good when I'm angry.
Mm-hmm.
The food's so nasty.
Your food is nasty.
Conversation.
It's nasty. If I cook with love, so it's like if I'm
you.
angry, I cannot cook when I'm upset. it's gonna be nasty.
All right. Well, let's make sure you're not cooking when you're angry.
And don't bring it to us.
Get a carry out.
Thanksgiving. If y'all haven't seen a Thanksgiving episode,
We're not gonna go there.
No,
we're
we
gonna
reel that
wrap
back.
this up with Austin and say thank you for coming on and sharing your expertise with us. Are there any last words that you want to leave us with in regards to what it is that you do and the importance of counseling, therapy, or even where you're taking your career next as a psych degree holder?
Well, my plan is to now. Right now, I have my bachelor's. I want to go get my master's, and I want to be a therapist. I would love it. I would say for those who you are trying to help and that you're trying to relate to and help kind of work through the issues, biggest thing is learn how to be in their life space first. Trying to be in a clinical setting with them the entire time, they're gonna feel that, and sometimes they're gonna get burnt out from it, and they're going to be less willing to share with you. But learning how to have the simple conversations of, hey, how was your day? How's it going? Even talk about my pops real quick. A real big bridge that we crossed that helped is learning when to be dad and when to be father. And
That's important.
having that balance made both work better.
as a millennial, I don't know the difference between dad and father, but I think relatability is the point here.
Yeah.
Because it's basically you making them feel like a human and not a patient or a resident.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Austin, thank you so much. We appreciate you and your words of wisdom that you brought here today, and good luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
When we come back, we're going to be talking about dealing with daily stressors and coping with mental health. And we'll have a special guest joining us for that segment. Stay tuned.
This is what happens when you have somebody mount your TV and they don't check the wall for things like wires and pipes. Call us and save yourself a headache.
Welcome back. Now we're talking about daily stressors and coping with mental health. And joining us is Cherell Dortch, who is a licensed mental health therapist and middle school therapist and a candidate, a PhD candidate, mind you, for clinical sexology. So we're about to have some fun with this session while we talk a little bit about mental health, just a little bit. Welcome to Every Woman Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
We're glad that you could join us. We are happy to have you here, and we just want to learn from you and your experience, because on today's show, we've been talking about mental health and dealing, and we just kind of want to focus a little bit on what your specialty is and daily stressors. And I know working with middle school children can be a challenge, right? Yes. I said personally that my middle school years were the worst time of my life. I hated middle school, so I think it really takes a special kind of person to deal with that specific age group of children, because they're dealing with so much, right, in adolescence. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing on a daily basis with the children and some of the, without giving away any, details, some of the things that our children at that age are coping with?
A common theme that I see with the children are just figuring out who they are. They're adjusting. They're in a very critical adjusting period. They're not the little baby anymore, but they're not adults. And so I think that time period developmentally is so hard because they're starting their cycles. They're starting to, bodies are changing. They're starting to experience so many things, and they don't know what to do with it. They never experienced this before. They don't know how to verbalize it. And then you have to go to school, and everybody is going through these different changes in emotions and hormones. And so a common theme that I see is just them talking about each other, because the have and the have-nots. But to be very honest, a lot of y'all don't have. But if your shoes look a little bit better, you have something to say about this person. A lot of with the boys, it's like always the boys against the girls. Or another big thing is just, I think, with coming back from the pandemic and being in middle school, a lot of them were in second, third, fourth grade when the pandemic hit. So now you're in middle school, so now you're adjusting a different way. This is a whole different ball game than second grade, and they're behind. So now that I'm behind, I don't really understand the work. I'm not going to ask for help. I'm going to make a fool of myself. So that is kind of like the biggest struggle with dealing with middle school. On top of them, just a lot of changes. A lot of people lost family members, and so, my healthy grandmother is not here anymore, and I have to figure this out. Another thing that I see a lot is just parental dynamics. They don't know how to talk to their parents. And I remember being in middle school and not being able to talk to my mama, even though she told me I can come tell her everything. But did I really tell her everything? And them not having that outlet, a healthy outlet.
Right.
And what they're using is social media.
And they use their friends, their social groups, right? And you're not necessarily getting the best, advice from someone who is in your same age group.
Not at all. And your friend is giving horrible advice and then telling all your business to this other friend.
Yeah.
And they are starting that in middle school. Yeah. That's I feel like that's like where the foundation is. They're starting it in middle school.
That actually unfortunately carries over into adulthood.
It does.
It's habits that are built at that young age. So a lot of these children are being diagnosed with things like ADHD and they deal with a lot of trauma in the community. Do you think there's an overdiagnosis of these things here?
Of course.
And it may just pushing the medication on it because kids don't focus. Like I think you have to learn how to focus. But what are your thoughts on that?
I do think that there is definitely an overdiagnosis. I think that people forget that they're children. So you want a child to sit in a seat for 6 hours. I'm not sitting in a seat for 6 hours. And so how can a child sit in a seat for 6 hours, opening a book, closing a book, being on a computer screen? That's a lot. They don't have any other outlets. They take away recess. They take away just fun times. Like in my school, a lot of times what I do is I'm the one who creates the activities and the events. So I'm asking the students, what would y'all like to do? You want to go here? You want to go there? Because they need that. They are not getting that opportunity to have those outlets. So of course attention is not going to stay focused on whatever it is that they need to stay focused on because I'll get it.
Yeah, I remember. Y'all remember recess in elementary school? That was the best.
And they take away. They took
good time.
And I believe that in middle school they still need recess, and they don't have that. My students have 25-minute lunch.
That's not enough.
That's the only break that they really get is 25-minute lunch.
That's not enough. That's not enough. So do you think that not being able to release some of that energy is adding to the stress in their day? And what are some of the type of stresses that you see the children dealing with?
Education. I think a lot of them are drastically behind. So I think education, and then the bar is not changed, right? So we have this gap year. They keep talking about this COVID gap year. However, the standard is still the same that it's been for years and years and years. And where's the adjustment? Nobody has adjusted the standard with the time. That's a big thing that I see. Another thing that I see is just family issues. They're coming to school with all of their baggage and have to adjust. Yeah. How can I adjust when I didn't eat last night? Yeah. How can I adjust when my mom and my dad are fighting?
And people make jokes about it. I was at a comedy show and I was saying like the comedians were making jokes about getting these kids out of the house because a lot of people didn't want to deal with their own kids for those extended hours in the day. Right. So how do you help the kids cope with some of the things that they are dealing with when they come in? Like, are there any type of exercises, that mental exercise you have them go through or walk them through when a child comes into your office and with an issue?
Of course, I have. So my room is in the back of the building in the basement. Don't want to call it basement, but it's downstairs, and I love it. I love it because a lot of times they don't see them come into my room. Okay. So it's not like, what you doing down there? I have a box outside of my door, and this is the mystery box. Like you put your question, you put your answer, whatever it is, you put it in my box. I come pull you from class. Nobody knows what you're talking about. Nobody, in my office, I have like squishies, I have Play-Doh, I have all of those things because a lot of times we like to fidget with our hands. Yeah. If you guys notice, I talk a lot with my hands, and a lot of students like to play with those things. So they have those things, and my space is very big, so they just walk and they pace and they just get it all out, and that's how I kind of let them they call it word vomit. I just let them talk.
Yeah.
Which is good. You mentioned social media and them that having an effect on them. How do you try to deter them from like staying off of it to help them cope with the things that they're going through? Because I know a lot of people, they're going to look on social media and try to just hone in because they don't have anything else to focus on.
I don't necessarily discourage them to stay off it completely, but definitely limit it. I think that in adults too. I think we need to limit social media because I think that a lot of things are a facade, right? And so them not being able to understand that, because sometimes adults can't understand that it's a facade, to be very honest. I tell them to look at reality. What do you really know what's going on? Okay, your homegirl posted this. But you already know how your homegirl is, so why are we believing these things that she's posting? Let's bring some reality to this. And I talk to them very honest, like I'm like the homegirl therapist. I'm like, we gonna have a real conversation. What does this mean?
Yeah.
I had a big issue with one of my students, and I was like, well, your homegirls came and told me. So your homegirls was the source of this. Where do you go? When do you go talk to your homegirls about this?
That sounds really good to be able to just like kick it with them, like on their level where they can connect with. I think it's important to connect with them where they are, right? So I think that's a great job. Kudos to you for being able to identify that and do it.
Because they're still so young, does the patient doctor, I know you're not, does that still apply? Or do you, when something like major happens, you kind of have to call the parent in, I'm sure. But how does that kind of work? Or do you kind of work together with the parent and the student to...
At what point do you have to say something to the parents?
In my intake, they know that. So my parents come in for intake. So you have to, if you're going to be on my caseload, you have to sign up. You have to have a full intake, like as if you were in a community agency.
So they have to sign up even to just be able to see you. They can't just come. Like a teacher can't send them to you.
They can.
Okay.
If we debriefing something, but if it's something that's continual, I need you to. I need your parent to be involved.
This is an agreement.
So wait. You actually provide mental health services as complete client patients from top to bottom in a middle school setting.
Yes.
It's not
That's
just because
awesome.
I remember when I was at Detroit Open School, I love my school. There was a counselor.
It was a counselor, yeah.
And the counselor was somewhere older than my mama, and she had a nice, cute, curly bob. And she did just usual. And she spoke to me, and honestly, I dealt with her from the time I was like in second grade to the time I was 8th grade, because I had the same bully the whole way through. And when I fought her in 8th grade, she knew the whole history, but she kept telling me, the things that she would normally tell people. But this is a different dynamic now.
It's very different.
That's amazing.
It's the superintendent of my district was very adamant about therapists coming to the school, coming back from the pandemic. And one thing that she also, when I was hired, she told me, you're for the staff and the students. So I have staff that comes in my office as well to just talk, and everything is confidential. I am very big on confidentiality. I don't like nobody tell my business. So I'm not telling your business.
Right.
Do you think like therapy helps people with being accountable and expressing themselves more?
If they take it serious. I think if you take it serious, if you do the work, the big thing with therapy is that I can give you all the tools. If you don't use them, it's not going to work. And I think that's the issue, is that you have to use and apply these things, and it's not going to be easy. And I tell the analogy that I use with my parents a lot of times is that this is not microwavable. We're not popping this in the microwave. You don't when you make pot roast, you don't pop the pot roast in the microwave and think it's gonna be done. You put it in a crock pot for hours and hours. And that is how we have to work on these things. Children are dealing with things for years, and how do we expect them to get over it in 6 weeks?
What do you think about? I remember reading an article, and it was talking about with the legalization of marijuana, there's an increase in the number of children under the age of 18 who are actually indulging in that substance, which I don't know what to say about that, but personally, I've been around it my whole life, right? Because I got them baby boomer parents. Not saying that they, but they're that generation where they were, flower power. What do you think about the use of marijuana? Not specific to your children or anything like that, but what do you think about the increasing growing number of children who are using marijuana to maybe cope? Yeah.
I do not think it's good that children use marijuana to cope. But I also think the overusage of anything to cope for any age is an issue. It may not be marijuana. If it's cupcakes for me, that's not a good thing. I don't need to eat so many cupcakes. The overusage of anything.
It's cookies for somebody else.
It's shopping, it's sex, it's whatever. So I think the overusage of anything is an issue. However, I think with children, we have to be careful because they're still developing.
So we have to promote healthy
coping skills.
mechanisms and skills in order to allow for the process of emotions. I love J. Cole, Kids on Drugs, because that album,
that was one of my favorite J. Cole albums.
Okay, and it's a press play for me because it literally speaks to the idea of meditation being a coping mechanism versus, reaching outside of yourself to come into some level of peace. So speaking of peace and yourself, I have a lot of homegirls, because we peers. I have a lot of homegirls who are therapists. They burn out. How do you find your peace?
Number one, I have a therapist. So I see her every 2 weeks. I missed last week. I can't wait for next week. I see her every 2 weeks. I've been with her for a while. And the thing is, when I started therapy with her, I didn't necessarily think I needed it. I just wanted to experience it because I never experienced it in this way. And only time I experienced it was in graduate school, and we had to have a therapist for 6 weeks, and it was like a peer-to-peer therapy. So, but I sought her out because I was like, I need to feel how it is to sit in that seat. And she has gotten me through so many things that I didn't even necessarily know I was going to need her for. So that's one thing that I am very, I go see my therapist every 2 weeks. I can text her, I can call her when I have those issues. I also am not afraid to ask for help, and I think that a lot of people are afraid to ask for help. Definitely. When it's time, if I have a daughter, my daughter is 1. Sometimes she drives me crazy. Sometimes I need to say, Mom, I need you to come get her today because I need that time, I need that moment. And I'm very transparent with that. I don't think before I was transparent, but now I'm able to say, I can't. My friends know, don't call me on a Sunday. I'm not giving no advice. I'm not talking you off no cliffs. Get somebody else to do it, because Sunday is my day to decompress and do what I need to do. And that is what I had to do, because you will burn out very, very fast because you're absorbing all of this energy and all of everybody else's issues, and they don't think nothing is wrong with you because you're the fixer, the healer.
Space.
Exactly. And so I had to just create very strict and strategic boundaries. This is what this is going to look like.
That's great.
So I'm going to reel it back a little bit because it's a sex part. Because, we need to talk about that a little bit.
The sexuality part of this is important.
That is important.
Because she is a candidate.
She is a candidate. And you did say that, of course, too much sex could be considered abuse to yourself because you're just doing it to try to mask those feelings.
But why? Because why are you doing it?
It's coping.
Hey,
If it's coping.
But how does it really, I know that's when you do have sex, you release endorphins and things like that. That can to mentally help you, but how much is it really connected to mental health?
I think that it depends on the space that you're in. Okay. If I'm married and I'm being intimate with my husband or my wife or my partner or whatever, I don't see an issue with that.
Absolutely.
If I'm just doing anything and I'm being reckless with it and I'm not protecting myself and I'm just out here doing X, Y, and Z, I think that's when it's becoming the issue. And when we're not okay with it too, right? So I think I see a lot of times that people are doing things sexually that they're not even okay with, they're just doing it.
Yeah.
That's the issue. If I'm okay with who I am and I'm doing it and I'm owning it, I don't see an issue with it.
Right.
I think an issue, and if we transition into this, I think an issue, especially for women, and especially for Black women, is that we are shamed for how we want to feel sexually. It's not okay for us to talk about sex, but we like to have it, and we want to have it good.
Where's the shame? Where does the shame come from?
And often,
I think it's generational. I think if we go all the way back, our bodies were used as tools and entertainment,
Absolutely.
And so I think that became an issue, and we were not to be pleasured, we were to be pleasured on.
That's right.
And so I think that becomes the whole issue of it, but we enjoy it too. Now, if we get into the mental health aspect, if I'm just sleeping with everybody because I'm trying to fill a void, that's the issue. Let's talk about that. But if I'm being intimate with this one person and it's a healthy relationship already, I don't see an issue with it if you have it every day, 5 times a day.
hey,
Listen, I see your passion.
Oh.
And this PhD is coming soon. Okay. I know. Listen,
I got questions.
We gonna have to get her back on here just to talk about sex.
Sex talk needs to come in.
It will be shortly after your PhD has been completed, and we can congratulate you, and we can come back and have healthy talk about sex and how to cope. But in closing, can you leave us with some, what are your advice on coping with stress that can be applied to children and adults? Just so that we can leave out of here with something tangible to say, okay, here's how I'm going to cope. I know you talked about meditation and finding peace. And
healthy coping,
you also talked about boundaries. Are there anything any additional coping skills you want to add to that?
I would say find what you really enjoy, not what you tolerate. So things that you really, really enjoy to do. So for me, I love to watch the same thing over and over again. I'm watching the same movies over and over again because it's not giving me stress. I can do it. I can do other things. I can do my daughter's hair. I can clean up. I can do those things, and it's not causing me stress. Another thing is find things that you really enjoy that is not going to give you a burden, right? So if you can't do, I like to travel. Right now I can't travel because I'm trying to write a doctoral project, right? So I know I can't do that right now. However, when I can do it, I do it. And I think for children, getting them to journal, getting them to write, and let them be honest with us. I think it's so many times we're not letting the students or the children be honest because it's like, oh, you being disrespectful. But this is how they feel. So let them express how they feel. I'm not saying just let them say anything and cuss it or whatever. But let them tell you how they're really, really feeling. I think a lot of my students say they do not feel heard. Just basic. Nobody is listening to me. So when are you gonna listen? We got to start listening to them. I give them journals. I had something on Facebook where I had people donate $5 for me to buy them journals. All of the journals are gone except 3, and they just told me they look too childish. It was like, Miss, why do we?
That one ain't cute. I'm not doing that.
But they're just writing in the journals. They're drawing in the journals. Another thing is find out what the students like. One thing, how I even connect and build rapport, especially with my boys, because it's easier for me to build rapport with my girl. Hey, girl, let me fix your hair. Let me do, But with the boys, I let them educate me on things. So I didn't watch the game last night. Tell me what happened on the game last night. So now they're educating me. Now they become comfortable with just having regular conversation. Then I can slide in those deeper conversations and the deeper questions, and then they're able to answer it.
That is amazing. Those are all great tools. Chanel, tell us.
Getting sleep. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
rest.
important.
Getting rest.
Sleep hygiene.
People need to sleep. We need to rest. And I think, and drink our water.
Sleep and water.
And that's for students too. A lot of I've been up all night. Why? You need to go to bed. Why?
She said, "Why?
Why are you up to 2? What were you doing on social media at 2:00 in the morning? Shut it down." And I think it's important for us to just rest, and sometimes not have anything to do. Rest.
So tell everybody where they can follow you and maybe get more social media versions of advice and nuggets from you. Talking to that camera right there.
Okay, you can follow me on Therapy Uncensored on Instagram. That's the name of my private practice is Therapy Uncensored. Also www.therapyuncensored.com. I am at Love C. Nelly on Instagram as well. And on Facebook, I am at Therapy Uncensored.
Well, you heard it here first. Thank you so much, Charnel, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That is our show today, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to come back to the Every Woman Show each and every Wednesday at 12 o'clock. See ya.
Bye. We are every woman.
That was good. Girl, that was good.
You don't see this passion over here.
Good.
Can I be honest? This is my first time ever doing this. Or anything, like being on a podcast, being on anything. I was so nervous.
How were you nervous?
I was so
You need your
nervous.
own.
We might have
You definitely have your first talk show
section
experience.
of-
I was so nervous.